And let's talk about this Buffy story. So the other day we broke the news that Buffy the Vampire Slayer is in fact being rebooted over at Hulu. And we hadn't heard from anybody regarding of, you know, we hadn't heard from Sarah. We hadn't heard from any of the other people who possibly could be coming back to the show. So it was reported by the trade. So that's why we all took it with, at face value, because when Deadline and Variety and the Hollywood Reporter and all of those major trades are speaking on this story, then, they already vet through all of this stuff and it is true. But after, I think it was maybe a day or two later, which was yesterday, basically, Sarah Michelle Gellar took to her Instagram to let the fans know that yes, that it is confirmed that we are getting this Buffy reboot. So yes, she posted the following. It is a long one, so um bear with me for a second as I read what she had to say. So she said the following. So you might have heard some news this week, but I realize you haven't heard from me. 3 years ago, I got a call from my dear friend and mentor, Gail Berman. She told me that she wanted me to sit down with Chloe Zhao to hear her take on a potential Buffy revival. I was blown away that Chloe even knew who I was, but as I've always done, I told Gail that I just didn't see a way for the show to exist again. We'd always been aligned on that, but this time I heard something different in her voice. I eventually agreed to go, mainly just to meet Chloe, and our 20-minute coffee quickly turned into a 4-hour adventure. We laughed, we cried, but mostly we both talked about how much the show means to us. While I didn't agree to anything in that meeting, I did shock myself by agreeing to continue the conversation. These conversations did, in fact, continue over the next few years, and eventually we added the incredible Nora and Lila, or is it Lila, Zuckerman, to our little tribe until ultimately one day we landed on an idea. I've always listened to the fans and heard your desire to revisit Buffy and her world, but it was not something I could do unless I was sure we could get it right. This has been a long process and it's not over yet. I promise you we will only make this show if we know we can do it right. And I will tell you that we are on the path here or path there. I feel so lucky to be on this journey with these four unbelievably talented women, all of who love Buffy as much as I do and as much as you do. Thank you to all the fans who never stop asking for this. This will be for you. So I know that there's some people who are overly excited, like myself, who is a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. I basically grew up watching Buffy in the 90s. It literally spoke to me in regards to a kid growing up and the whole metaphors of evil and coming of age and how all that kind of goes hand in hand. Like, for instance, when Buffy lost her virginity to Angel and Angel turns evil, which is like a metaphor of like, oh yeah, you finally give up your virginity to a guy and he turns out to be a dick. So there was metaphors in a lot of that. And we love what Joss Whedon brought in regards of the whole Buffy the Vampire Slayer situation and marrying that whole teen angst, the self-deprecating humor with the supernatural. And nobody has done it like him. We see so many shows post Buffy the Vampire Slayer that have emulated a lot of Joss's style. And I know a lot of the younger generation that's now in the entertainment industry have taken a page out of Joss Whedon's handbooks and have been inspired by doing a lot of his Whedonisms and interjecting it into their shows. Excuse me, but making it their own. So we appreciate that whole situation regarding that. Now, I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with this show, what other ideas they're going to come up with, who's Buffy, where Buffy fits in 2020. Well, who knows what is coming out? It's probably 2026, but where she kind of fits in that world in regards of post the past series, how she's what is she up to? Is she a mother? Is she like a former slayer now? She's a watcher who are kind of looking over potential slayers. If she is a mother, is her child have the gift and she's basically trying to teach her or whatever, and thought now that supernatural things is happening, she's taking her daughter on her wing and having to introduce her to this world, something that probably she was avoiding trying to do because that was her gift and that was her burden and that's what she had to deal with. So a lot of ideas are swimming in my brain, and I definitely I'm looking forward to seeing what she's going to bring or they're going to bring to this series. I'm actually glad that Joss Whedon isn't coming back because, Joss Whedon and his problematic behind made a lot of people's lives to live in hell, including we still are pissed off how he did Charisma Carpenter dirty. So if they could find a way to bring her back to the show, I think it would be great because I would love to see Cordelia get her just due. I hated the way they did her in in Angel when she got pregnant and then he went and decided to kill her off and all other stuff. So I didn't like that whole storyline of what he did to her. And then Charisma has spoken out. Excuse me. Charisma has spoken out about the issues that she had with him and working on the show and dealing with Joss Whedon behind the scenes. And I'm glad that he's not going to be a part of it. Of course, they're going to have to pay him some money because they're using something that he created. So I'm sure he gets a percentage. But as long as he stays far away from the whole Buffy the Vampire Slayer franchise, I'm here for it. So, yeah, and I'm glad that she said she's doing it for the fans. But and look, with this, we're in a current I feel like we're in a current situation right now where a lot of shows that we loved growing up that existed 20 plus years ago are getting a bit of a revival. So it's like we have, the great thing is we have Buffy coming back, but we have Sex and the City with And Just Like That. Although And Just Like That, y'all already know when I watch that show, I'm hoping season 3 actually gets it right because I feel like they haven't figured out the tone of that show. Like Sex and the City, I love Sex and the City, but then when you watch And Just Like That, it just kind of feels like they really don't know where to go with the series. It's how these middle-aged white women in New York are trying to fit in with all these different demographics and diversity and all this other stuff. Don't make it feel like it's just some paint by numbers, or we have to have all these other people in here. Figure out what they're going to do with that. At Dexter, when you have a young Dexter, they really got the show right in regards to that. So I'm really hoping that Buffy falls more or less on the Dexter side where they figured it out and they can they can tell a new story, but maybe not go into the full Joss Whedon situation. Give us something different. Y'all can go a little darker. The fight sequences could be a little cool. Well, be a little more ruthless and brutal because the fight scenes back in the day, the fight scenes are still lit. There was some excellent fight sequences that I can still think of with Buffy that she's had on the show, especially her iconic scene when her and Faith was fighting. And then they ended up switching, bodies or whatever the case was. So that was a cool one. That's like one of my all-time favorite fight sequences when she and Faith went at it in the finale. Wasn't that around the time I think when they burned down the school and then Faith was working with the mayor. So I'm really hoping that they fall less on the Dexter side versus the Sex and the City side because after 2 seasons, I feel like they're still trying to figure it out. And fingers crossed they got it right with season 3 because if they don't, I'm done with that franchise. But I'm going to stick it out with Dexter because Dexter is actually, it's on the right track so far. And I like what they're doing with the prequel. And I'm hoping that the one Resurrection that's going to come out where Michael C. Hall's Dexter apparently is not dead, that they can correct some situations because that last season they did with him and Harrison was a little hit and miss with me in certain situations. So I say all of this to say, what do you guys think of this story in regards of Sarah Michelle Gellar speaking out on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and giving the official confirmation that we are getting the show? I'm excited. I'm fingers crossed that they're not going to let me down. And you know what? If it goes a little sour, what I'll do is at least we got the old shows, which I'm currently watching on Hulu, rewatching on Hulu, among other shows that I'm rewatching. So I even noticed they dropped New York Undercover is on Hulu. So I was like, oh, I haven't seen this show in a gazillion years. I had to stop and watch that yesterday. So let me know what you guys think of this show and think of this story in the comments down below.